Hi, I'm Sarah Piampiano. I'm a professional triathlete. I'm a four-time Ironman and seven-time 70.3 champion. And I have been working with Ixcela since 2018. I'd recommend Ixcela because it's just changed my life in such a significant way, whether it be as an elite athlete, helping me perform better, to just as a person being able to sleep better and feel better on a day in and day out basis. And there's nothing better than that when you just feel better in your own skin. So I can't recommend it enough. I started working with Ixcela because I felt like there was something missing in my performance. For years, I had been struggling with a lot of sort of underlying health issues. I had struggled from a thyroid disorder. I had bloating. I had a lot of constipation, a lot of GI distress, and a lot of inflammation in my body. And I really felt like I just wasn't recovering well from training, recovering well from races. I was going into races very fatigued and felt like maybe there was something more that I could be doing. I had worked with a nutritionist for quite a number of years, but just was still not getting the success that I wanted, and ended up getting referred to Ixcela, and they really felt like they could help me and really kind of breaking things down and taking a look at my gut health. And that's how we started. So before I started working with Ixcela, one of the biggest things that I struggled with was inflammation around races. And so, for example, after an Ironman race, I would typically retain upwards of 15 to 25 pounds of water weight in terms of my body, just having, completely having a lot of inflammation after a race. And oftentimes it would take almost 2 weeks for the inflammation to go away, but a month or more for me to really recover from the race. And what I noticed after I had been working with Ixcela for a little while, I had been on this low FODMAP diet for a while and really was allowing my body to heal. After an Ironman, almost everybody suffers from a little bit of inflammation, but my inflammation was reduced more to like 5 pounds of inflammation versus 15 or 25. And also I was just recovering so much better. So for me, a recovery from an Ironman was more in the 2 to 3 week range versus the 4 to 6 week range. The change in inflammation alone was so significant. It significantly impacted my recovery and my capacity to get out the next day and, perform at a high intensity again. And that is really kind of what started the ball rolling for me in terms of actually getting to 2019 and having the best season of my career. So for me, my GI distress more came in the form of constipation, and it's actually something I've struggled with my entire life, and I didn't even realize that it was something that kind of was out of kilter until I started to learn more and became an athlete. For me, I was typically going to the bathroom, maybe twice a week, but usually one time per week. And as soon as I started working with Ixcela, one of the first things that they identified was that I likely struggled from IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, and recommended that I try a low FODMAP diet. And nobody had ever recommended that to me before. And within, honestly, a week, I noticed a difference. My inflammation immediately reduced, my bloating reduced, my sleep improved, literally within just a few days period of time of starting on this diet. And I transitioned from going to the bathroom 1 or 2 times a week to every day, daily. And that was huge. I mean, I felt like everything about my health profile was really changing. My thyroid stabilized, my iron levels improved. For me, it was just this kind of whole body transformation that was felt both, physically in terms of inflammation and constipation and things like that, and also internally in terms of, how my body was absorbing the foods that I was eating. It's a very simple, very easy self finger prick that you do that gets a little bit of blood. It takes about 2 minutes. You stick it back into a package and mail it off to Ixcela. There's no stool samples. It's not a very complicated process. And for me as an athlete, constantly on the go and out training, it just made things really easy for me in terms of being able to quickly do the testing and move on to whatever my next training block was. One of the things I love about Ixcela, I guess there's a couple things. One is the report you get after you do the testing. It is so fantastic. It breaks down all of the different metabolites that are tested, explains to you what they each are, what they do, how they have an impact on your health, how they tie into one another. And then it gives recommendations. It may give you food recommendations. And then it says with each recommendation, what metabolite that relates back to in terms of whether it was high or low and how it's going to help you. And so, and also from an exercise perspective and a meditation or mindfulness perspective. So the report is so fantastic. And then the other thing I love about the program is your connection to a dietitian. You know, you're able to get on the phone with somebody live, go over your results, ask questions, hear their recommendations, talk to them about some of the things that you've been experiencing. And it makes the experience so much more meaningful and comprehensive than just doing a test and getting, you know, these random results back that you may or may not understand. So it's really wonderful from that end. And I love that they have created this program that is comprehensive and also really breaks things down for, you know, for us, the non-scientists, to understand. The reason I was so excited about partnering with Ixcela is because it's honestly not just for athletes. Like, yes, for me as an elite athlete, I have gained so much benefit from it in terms of elevating my performance levels. But gut health is such an important thing that everybody needs to be focusing on. It has such big ramifications on disease and our overall health and how we're sleeping and focusing. And, you know, there's just been so much research around it. And so, you know, for me, being able to share my experience as an athlete is one thing, but, you know, just being able to be an advocate for Ixcela and for promoting the idea of gut health is something I feel really excited about. And so, you know, whether you're young or old or an athlete or not an athlete, this is something that you can benefit from. And if you're having any issues whatsoever, whether it be sleep issues or inflammation issues or GI issues, or you can't focus, like a lot of that can get tied back to gut health. And so, you know, getting that tested and potentially working with Ixcela is something you get a lot of benefit from.